So welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and today we have a siege on Thranduil's halls, which I think has actually undergone a couple of changes. I mean, certainly outside there are a lot more trees than there used to be, although I think there is actually another version of Thranduil's halls that's also been made, although I'm not entirely sure about that. But yeah, we're going to be going on Thranduil's halls again, which is a map I know quite well, but with these new changes, I mean, the trees can work in favour and against any sort of player because, you know, obviously it makes things a little bit more difficult to see. You do need to get a little bit closer to organise your armies, so we'll see how this goes. It is the 3v5 and it is the defenders who are going to be over here on the blue team, and interestingly enough it's going to be the evil faction which is on the defence. So I guess while Thranduil was out campaigning elsewhere, the forces of evil took this to their advantage and took over Thranduil's halls without any sort of fight. But now Mirkwood themselves will be spearheading the assault to try and get their home back. So I think we'll go through the attackers first of all, considering it's how we usually do things. So we'll have a look at the first faction which is on the attack, and that's Sidious 307, who is going to be playing as the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm. Khazad-dûm, of course, do well in sieges, generally speaking, especially ones which can get tight and clustered into choke points because of the power of the Dwarven heavy infantry. Khazad-dûm are not quite as ridiculous as they used to be, of course, but they still have a good deal of strength in this area. So we have some 3rd Legion infantry without the armour upgrade, but even without the armour upgrade, to be honest, they're still a very, very fine unit of line infantry indeed. We also have some Warriors of Khazad-dûm here, so the slightly lower tier option that Khazad-dûm have for their line infantry, but of course slightly cheaper at the same time. We also have the 4th Legion Shield Guard. The 4th Legion Shield Guard, I believe they now do have their Spear Malus. The problem with them in the previous patch was they didn't, when most spears tended to. So they were essentially better at being line infantry than regular infantry was, because spears attack faster, and also they had all the benefits that being spears brings, such as, you know, bonus against cavalry and the shield wall formation. But I believe they have been brought more into line with what a spear should be now. But even so, still very useful, still good against infantry, all things considered, seeing as their stats are high enough for such things. But obviously in this sort of situation they're going to be much better for really being the centre of that dwarven line. We have the Iron Watch of Miramir again, so this is essentially the specialty projectile unit that Khazad-dûm have to offer. It's essentially a heavy crossbow unit that fires their bolts like mortars. So you could look at them as being Khazad-dûm's answer to something like the Blackwatch Legion or the Witchers, or something which is a little bit more unique to them entirely. I'm not sure whether they're working properly at the moment though. I think their accuracy is too low for what it should be at the moment. At least that's what I've been gathering from the Discord. But even so, they are still a useful unit to have, especially when the choke point gets very blobby indeed. The Iron Watch should be exactly what is needed to help punch through. We have some 2nd Legion Axe Guard here, along with more Warriors, so obviously a bit of AP is always nice. A Dwarven Ballista. We'll see how well they can get their shots off. We have the Hammers of Gundabad, who have their new brass armour and purple capes, just a little bit more like it in terms of what they're all about, because I think the green model that was there before was a little bit plain and it didn't really fit in with the rest of Khazad-dûm. These guys still stand out, of course, but a little bit more ostentatious perhaps, which the dwarves certainly aren't shy about being sometimes. 3rd Legion, 2nd Legion, so it's gone for mostly Legion units, and for the most part this is a more quality focused army. His general's going to be in the armour piercing Mithril Guard as well, so he's decided to go for a little bit more offence than the defence that the guards of Khazad-dûm potentially offer you, or the Legion Bodyguard. The 2nd army that's on the attack is going to be Gondor, played by Matrasp 30, and he's got some Gondor archers here, just with the 1st level of armour upgrades. They do have sort of the shoulder pauldrons and the arm guards as well added to their unit model, but the rest of it is still chainmail. But even so, this is still sort of archer that you really want to get involved in a skirmish fight if you can, because their armour will help see them through. A sort of long, grindy fight at range is exactly the sort of thing that Gondor can engage in very, very easily. The Gondor archers very much a part of that. A catapult as well, so the attacker's certainly going for quite a few units of artillery here, which is understandable, seeing as you can toss them across the river and hit particularly the army which is on this side of the defence, because it's quite difficult to hide from artillery there. So good moves there. Guards of Osgiliath, so some pikes, very good in a siege as long as they're out of view of any skirmishers that can hit them. That's the same thing with any pikes, but interesting to see if that happens here. The Fountain Guard as well, very similar, only even more so because they're so powerful in melee. But of course, even with their big armour values, they will still be vulnerable in a choke point fight to enemy archers. We also have the Wardens of the White Tower back here, so he's gone for the bodyguard unit, which is a sword and shield. So very generally a safe place to put your general in a siege like this. Just because obviously they're very difficult to kill off individually. He's also got the Vanguard of King Elisar, so he's gone for quite a few elite units, it would seem. So this is obviously Gondor's bodyguard tier heavy swordsman. Then over here, we've got the Raven Helms of Caer Andros, previously known as the Caer Andros Swordmasters. They, I believe, haven't had their unit model changed at all because, they already were in line with what the rest of Gondor now looks like. But yeah, obviously, for a Swordmaster unit, they generally focus on melee defense and high damage values. But their Raven Helms of Caer Andros, much like the rest of Gondor, also pack on their armor values quite heavily, so that gives them a little bit of extra survivability. Axemen of Lasarnak with the first level of armor upgrade at the very least, so they're going to be a little bit tougher in melee as well. Same with the Gondor Spearmen. I do actually wonder if Matt is aware of the fact that you can upgrade Gondor's armor twice rather than just once, because it seems as though he's upgraded all of his units just the once, which leads me to believe he doesn't know that Gondor can upgrade it another value entirely. Indeed, the Gondor infantry are much the same. They've got the first level of armor upgrades also. Not that this is a bad thing, because it means he would have potentially been able to afford another unit or two, but still, still Gondor are going to be very, very tough with their armor values overall. And he's gone for some elite units as well as some standard units like infantry and spears, so pretty standard fare for Gondor in a siege. Then we move on to the Men of the Hour, Dreezy, who's going to be playing as Mirkwood, because obviously they are going to be looking to try and retake their homeland. Mirkwood have got some new unit models as well. This sort of green unit model that you can see here are the armor upgrades for Mirkwood. So one thing that Mirkwood do perhaps struggle a little bit more with is the fact their armor values are relatively low. Only Lindon among the elves have got lower armor values when they're at their base. But Mirkwood can now upgrade their armor, so you can mitigate that somewhat, at least with their heavier units, the Hir units, the Hir Lang, the Hir Ek, and the Hir Peng, I believe it is, and also the Palace Guard actually can upgrade their armor as well, I think, which would make them, I think, one of the only bodyguard tier units that can upgrade their armor, which is interesting. But yes, we have the Hir Ek, so the heavier spearmen that Mirkwood have available to them. Obviously, very good skill, very fine in melee. They've got their new weaponry models as well. But obviously they are spearmen at the end of the day, and obviously the elves do need to be careful in a battle like this, because if they get caught in a choke point for too long, elves don't do well if they're in a war of attrition and they get bottled up. We also have the Hiri Lang just in behind here, so again the armor upgrades. Heavy elven swordsmen are terrific in a melee fight over a long period of time, of course. But once again, still, even with the armor upgrade, they're still going to be quite vulnerable to missiles here, because obviously their armor values are still lower than someone like the Western Kingdoms of Men. For example, the Raven Helms of Caer Andros still have a significantly higher armor value than the Hiri Lang, even with the upgrades. But still, fantastic in melee. Similar story with the Hiri Auth as well. Heavy infantry, the shields will help them on the approach, of course, and then in melee, as line infantry goes, elven line infantry does tend to be very, very good indeed. Then at the centre of this we of course have the mighty Elven King's Palace Guard, the Glaive unit. They don't have this title to themselves anymore because they do have the Morroquendi Glaive Masters, I think they were called, or Glaive Lords? No, that was the Knights, wasn't it? But Dorwinian essentially have a very similar unit to the Elven King's Palace Guard now. But we obviously know how powerful the Palace Guard can be. Once upon a time they had 6 hit points in the long, long ago. But even as they are, they're still one of the strongest units of infantry in the game, as well as having that nice anti-cavalry bonus. Another unit of Hiri Auth. He's gone for a lot of the elite units, it looks like. I don't think there's going to be a great deal of hidden units, because there's a lot of these Hir units which Dreezy has brought, which leads me to believe that there's not going to be a great deal of hidden units that he has, especially with the armour upgrades that he's brought. A couple of units of Hiri Peng, and especially considering the fact that he has brought the Ents, which is unsurprising in a siege like this, because it really gives Mirkwood a good deal of power in trying to smash through the enemy lines. Then, moving on, we have Numenor, played by my doppelganger. We have some Belagair archers, so very good in a skirmish fight, of course, trying to wear down the enemy. A lot of quality that Numenor can bring to the field. The Romena Bawabarim, who of course are the armour-piercing archers. Very limited ammunition, but against individual targets, especially here, if they shoot into the heart of a phalanx, they could do tons of damage. Unsurprising to see the Seafarers of Nindamos, because of course the javelins are very, very important to Numenor to do damage quickly. We have the Nardukadar, the Romena Nardukadar, armour-piercing spears, very, very nice to see. Gondor actually haven't brought any of their Citadel Guard, which would be the equivalent unit from Gondor, but they do have their Fountain Guard. The Romena Abarim, which are a very, very strong unit of line infantry as well. It'd be interesting to see which would be better, these guys or the upgraded version of the Hiri Auth from Mirkwood. I think it might be the Abarim still, because their armour's good, but also their attack values are very, very nasty, and also the fact that you can mass them up a little bit easier than Mirkwood are able to mass up their line infantry. We also have the Royal Legion of Armenelos and the Pharazim Swordmasters. So of course in a siege, Numenor are much less under pressure to bring maybe 1 or 2 of their cavalry units, which do tend to be quite expensive. There's a hidden Mirkwood units down there because of the stakes. But yeah, they can invest much more heavily in their infantry, which of course Numenor are very much at home in doing. There's also some Belagair archers over here who are a little bit too far over. There's going to be no units over there, but potentially looking to shoot across the lake. And then finally, we have the Shire, played by Cole. So we have the Bjornings, which it's unsurprising to see the Bjornings, even if they are a mounted unit, because the Hobbits obviously do tend to have a little bit of a discrepancy when it comes to their quality units. They can field quite a lot of numbers, as well as quite a lot of damaging units as well. But if they can make a gap in the line and get the Bjornings in behind the defence, that could be exactly the sort of thing which could cause some havoc. Farmers of Buckland are very, very damaging actually off the charge, but of course, like most of the Hobbit folk, they tend to be difficult to keep alive for any length of time. A lot of armour piercing in here though. Hobbitry and arms, again, very similar, armour piercing, but obviously they are lower tier spears, so overall their stats are maybe not as good as you would expect. Bandits over here, so they will throw a javelin, volley, and then charge into melee, which is always nice. Also another unit Ents, so that's 2 units of Ents that the attackers have at their disposal. Some Proudfoot Protectors, some Dunedain Rangers, all of the ranged units, Vanderbrass Archers, Tookish Hunters, 2 units of them. 3 units of them actually, it looks like. Nope, those are the Longbottom Mob. And also a unit of Sheriffs of the Farthing, so another unit of mounted company here from the Hobbit. So they're providing the cavalry here, well, not unsurprisingly, surprisingly. So now we'll move on to the defenders, and we shall start off over here with Umbar, played by Steward of Dale. So he's got to be careful because he's on the side of things where that siege across the river will almost certainly try to bite into his lines a bit. He's got the Harbingers of Castamere, obviously a terrific heavy swordsman unit. Very, very nice indeed. Nice new unit model. That's where the general is. Because the general's in the infantry unit, this means that the Warlords of Umbar can be used in a freer role. We'll see how useful they be. If they charge out too soon, I think they will be overwhelmed, but if they're saved for later, when the enemy are trying to advance into the second layer, the Warlords could get some very nasty charges off. Some Belagire footmen, so some basic spears, some Naruna Aru sentinels, a nice morale battery, as well as a terrific pikeman in their own right. More Belagire pikemen. Some Corsair Blackguards, so obviously some very nasty javelins that could be loosed here. Some Naruna Aru Royal Guard, another morale battery and fantastic archer. The Balaketh Marksman, obviously previously the Abrazanim Nadubawib, one of the better units of heavy archers in the game because they have that armour upgrade, they have that shield, decent damage as well all around, very similar to the Bardian Marksman from Dale, even down to the fact that they can both upgrade their armour by 1 level. Belagire archers here, so Balaketh Axe Guard, again with the armour upgrade, that armour piercing will be useful against the Dwarves and Gondor and Numenor. And also we have the Balaketh Shield Bearers, so he's gone for certainly an armour piercing core of all of his Balaketh units. Probably has a couple of hidden units as well indeed, yeah, Castamere's Rangers and Corsair Crossbowmen. Very unsurprising to see those 2 units with the amount of damage that they can do quickly in a situation like this. In the centre we have Stewed Balrog, who's going to be playing as the Witch Realm of Angmar, so another very strong heavy infantry faction. Guardians of Khan Doom with the armour upgrade, Gundabad Guard, which I believe inspire units around them, which is nice. Obviously it's good for the Orcs. Even Angmar, who have a few more quality units than perhaps some of the other Orcs, do need some morale support sometimes, especially when they're up against someone like the Elves. Guardians of Khan Doom again with the armour upgrade. This is not their general, I don't believe. No, it isn't. But it is the Witch Realm Hammer Guard, so another unit of very nasty armour-piercing shock troops there, multiple HP. Blackwatch Legion, interesting to see the Blackwatch Legion on the defence here. It will prevent any mass pushes just by counteracting it by their very presence. Witch Realm Blackguard, obviously terrific sword and board unit, another unit of cavalry, the Witch Realm Inquisitors, so looks like the defenders have gone for some very high tier cavalry which they can use to counteract the enemy. But it is worth saying, of course, that the red team only has a few units of cavalry themselves. Witch Realm Pikemen, Scourge Raiders in and amongst the pikes, they can throw their javelins from within the safety of the phalanx, relative safety anyway. More Guardians of Khan Doom and more Gundabad Guard. We also have some Witchers who could be absolutely devastating, as we know, and he's also punted for the Trolls of Angmar with their 2 sort of wrist-mounted shards of metal that they use as weaponry. And then finally, the player who we're going to be seeing this battle from the perspective of, and who sent me the replay, is Lango, and he is going to be playing as Isengard. Obviously Isengard, very much a professional outfit of Orcs, relatively speaking, of Uruk-hai. They and Angmar tend to have more in common with one another, as the Misty Mountains and Mordor tend to have more in common with one another. It's sort of like almost subgroups of Orcs, really. But Isengard certainly have a more professional look to their army overall, and certainly very much inspired by the Western Kingdoms of Men, unsurprising considering Saruman created them. So we have the Uruk-hai Berserkers here, obviously one of the units in Isengard's roster that doesn't have a lot of armour, but does have multiple HP and is capable of doing a ton of damage very, very quickly. Uruk-hai Pikemen, Uruk-hai Infantry are in there as well, so tons of Uruk-hai at the core here, which is good to see. We've also got the Trolls of the White Hand, which is also good to see. They're another very, very strong unit of Trolls. Half-Orc Baneguard, there's Archers in there, but yeah, there's crossbows in there as well. There's also Uruk-hai Reavers, there's Guards of Orthanc here at the back, which might be the general. It's kind of hard to tell with all the bushes and grass everywhere. Yeah, Uruk-hai crossbow. The Isengard Ballista is here, which is another very fine addition to the Isengard defences. Probably overall the most reliable piece of siege equipment in the game at the moment, with the amount of damage it can do to infantry, enemy artillery, and, well, in settlements as well, but obviously that's not going to be terribly relevant here. But I will make a little bit of a cut, because it does tend to take the attackers a little bit of time to sort of gather their forces up and then start advancing in earnest onto the defenders' position. So I'll rejoin when the battle begins. So I'm going to be interested actually to see how the attackers handle this, because you can see already Umbar's Belagair archers up on this cliffside have moved into position to start skirmishing down the enemy as they move forward. And only a single unit of Belagair archers from Numenor actually have moved forward to engage. So it's unlikely that these guys will actually achieve much of anything. Indeed, I think they are going to pull back because they're all on their lonesome here, and they will be focused down by a lot of the enemy archers. But also, you know, going forward without any kind of support is always a bit of a recipe for disaster when there's enemy cavalry around. And the Witch Realm Inquisitors will be able to sally out, as well as the Warlords of Umbar. If they took a charge from the Warlords of Umbar, that's going to be it for them. And I think they are going to. The Witch Realm Inquisitors will continue to hound them, although actually, yeah, the Warlords of Umbar I think actually stopped with their charge. The Witch Realm Inquisitors are closest, so they're just going to keep chasing them down. Yeah, you can't afford to just send forward one unit. I know what he was trying to do is obviously trying to get a lot of the enemy archers to use a decent chunk of their ammunition just on this one unit. The problem with doing that, of course, is when there's units of cavalry there, they're obviously going to move forwards and kill them off very, very quickly. You can see here the Ents just pushing the poor Gondorians out the way. They will, of course, get right back up. Woodland Realm Patrol doing a few shots, but obviously the Witch Realm Inquisitors, it's going to take a lot more than that to bring them down. A few errant shots there, none of them falling away. Obviously multiple HP, good armour, good shields as well when the first volley came in. The Belagair archers are now going to swing back around and head back towards the front line, and they will be doing so with the support of some spearmen now, both from Khazad-dûm. I was going to say Gondor as well, but Gondor actually haven't advanced all the way down here just yet. But yeah, it is an interesting dilemma for the defenders, because obviously if they just allow these Belagair archers to do their thing, they will slowly whittle down the skirmish power they have available to them, but by the same token they can't afford to just use all of their archers on this one unit. The Belagair archers for Numenor are most certainly not an important unit to Numenor. They're just here to try and waste some of the defenders' resources. You can see some arrows piercing the trees there. I believe that is, yes indeed, it's the Uruk-hai archers from Isengard taking up position on this hill over here. So Uruk-hai archers, obviously again, certainly not the highest quality as far as archers go. But early game skirmishes like this do tend to be between some of the lower quality units. And obviously one problem that Numenor do have here is the fact that they are in a very disadvantageous position. It's a real killing ground here on Thranduil's Halls, this basin, where the defenders can essentially set up very nasty crossfires. And also from down here it's also difficult to get effective shots yourselves up, and even though the Belagair archers are pretty good in a skirmish fight, with their, I think they have got their armour upgrades, so that gives them decent armour as well as those little bucklers to give them a bit of a shield value as well. They find themselves outmatched in every sense here. So definitely going to be taking it slow. And they do need to here, the attackers. They can't afford to be too aggressive. If this was like the evil forces attacking the good forces, you'll often see evil be far more aggressive because they've got a lot more manpower to burn. Whereas here it's kind of the other way around. The evil forces, they don't necessarily have huge spikes of quality like the good factions tend to when they're on the defense, especially the elves. But they do have quite a lot of numbers. Like they can afford to be a little bit more lax with their defending, as it were, because they do have more that they can. This is actually a very risky move, however. The Warlords of Umbar are charging down the hill into the Ents. Be interesting to see if they kill off any of these Ents. I don't think they will. The Ents are so deadly, and indeed a couple of the Warlords of Umbar falling away there. Yeah, like the Ents overall are, I think it's fair to say, like the strongest of this kind of unit, like even more so than Olag-hai or Trolls of the White Hand. The Ents are so tanky and tough to bring down, and they can do so much damage. They're honestly quite an annoying unit to deal with if you're faced with them. But still, I mean, there was a lot of debate around the Ents during development about whether they made Mirkwood too strong. I don't think they make Mirkwood overpowered, but they certainly make Mirkwood, I think, one of the most user-friendly factions to play. Like, arguably, I think they make Mirkwood the easiest Elven faction to play, alongside Linden, to be honest. The Ents are starting to die off a bit now, though. Only 5 of them, so that second charge there from the Witch Realm Inquisitors actually managing to kill off a few of the Ents. So the Warlords of Umbar sacrificing a few of their number to weaken the Ents, soften them for the killing blow, and that is how you have to deal with the Ents. You have to shock them, you have to like wear them down quickly. If you try to sort of slowly beat them down through attrition, you're going to lose so many unit models doing that. Balagai footmen are up here. Looks like a few Dwarven units are shuffling their way to the front lines, the 4th Legion Shield Guard, I think to try and prevent any more sallying out from the Umbar cavalry. What's going on over here? Those Balagai archers are trying to fall back. Don't know if Dreezy will be too happy about the fact that he's already lost some of his Ents. That means that they've already lost a good chunk of their hit points, which is not good going forward. Fortunately for the attackers, they do still have the Ents that the Shire has brought along as well. There's a lot of hobbitry and arms flowing forward. The hobbits definitely providing a lot of the numbers here to this assault. But yeah, as I was saying, when the good factions are on the attack, they do need to be very careful, because if they charge forward unthinkingly, they will find themselves swallowed up through sheer weight of numbers. And here you can see that Sidious 307 sending forward a unit of 4th Legion Shield Guard. A little bit isolated here. They are Dwarven Spears, but even so, they're going up against a well-prepared Phalanx. In addition to the Barrow-wights. The Barrow-wights do not do damage particularly quickly, but while they're not as over the top as they used to be in terms of their survivability, they're still difficult to kill off, especially for spears. The spear malice will certainly not help matters here. Gondor already shaken, sending forward a unit of Gondor spearmen completely unsupported into a fear-causing unit like the Barrow-wights, especially when they're hideously outnumbered by all the Balagai units in behind. It's not a good idea. You definitely need, when you move up, regardless of whether you're evil on the attack, good on the attack, you need to move up as a unit. And they are now catching up with a lot more units as well. Gondor infantry is moving up, more 4th Legion Shield Guard. So Gondor and Khazad-dûm, two factions with a lot of very nice heavy infantry to their name, going to be heading in. But again, a lot of this is spears, which is not going to be the answer for pushing through this defence quickly. Like, Umbar have already got their forces into position. That Dwarven Ballista, I think, definitely needs to try and shoot down this line. It's one of the quirks of this map. If you're on the attack and you're on this side with a piece of siege equipment, I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get it into a good position, and that's exactly what is needed, because it will devastate the Umbar defensive line quickly. And they need that to happen, honestly, because already Umbar find themselves in a pretty comfortable position. They're not necessarily going to kill off these heavily armoured Gondorians and Dwarves quickly with spears and pikes, but neither are they in too much damage of dying anytime soon. I mean, the Woodland Realm Patrol are trying to shoot into the flank of this force here and maybe open up a bit of a gap, but honestly, with the amount of forces that are on the front line here from Khazad-dûm and Gondor, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely the sort of position where the attackers will eventually smash their way through it, but the real question is, at what cost? What have we got going on here? So another assault on this side as well. You can see here these Uruk-hai archers have immediately been focused down in the interim that we've been gone by some Gondor archers that move forward, and of course in a skirmish fight the Gondor archers are far superior to the Uruk-hai archers wearing nothing but those very simple leathers. Once again, we're going to see the Barrow-wights form the anchor at the front line, and they're going to be backed up by Uruk-hai infantry on this side. The Gondor archers moving in maybe a little bit too close there. It doesn't look like they're actually going to move in fully over here. They're still content to try and skirmish down. They have a very clear shot in here after all. And even though they're unlikely to kill off Uruk-hai infantry and Barrow-wights with any sort of speed, they can still do damage. Efficient use of the arrows. But over here, a much more genuine assault, it must be said. You can see here the Corsair Blackguards trying to get into position to use their javelins, I think. You can also see that the Umbar skirmishers have sort of repositioned themselves. The Balaketh marksmen. There's actually the Casimir's Rangers firing away as well, so the Casimir's Rangers seeing an opportunity to shoot into the Khazad-dûm and Gondor blob. And still you can see that Gondor and Khazad-dûm are starting to run out of steam a little bit here. The ballista is starting to fire. Of course, what would be devastating is if one of these shots goes wide and shoots into the flank of the Gondorian unit. I would not use fire arrows here, actually. I wouldn't use fire arrows if I were Dreezy, because the ones that are more likely to rout are the attacking forces here. Like, you're not likely to rout Umbar. I mean, even Umbar are a faction with a lot of good morale anyway. Like, the Balagai units are relatively standard, but even so, as a general rule, Umbar are not an easy faction to break, especially in relation to the rest of the evil men. And one errant shot from that ballista, combined with those fire arrows, would be enough to break these shaken Gondorians, certainly. The dwarves might stick around for a little bit longer, but you can see here that the hobbits are trying to push their way through, and they did actually manage to push their way through, but they immediately routed. And there go the Witch-Armed Scourge Raiders throwing their axes into this portion of the line here. I don't think this attack is going anywhere fast. The Umbar phalanx has held for far too long. The Gondor infantry is routing off. The fire arrow is not really doing them any favours there, but also the fear from the Barrow-wights also a big factor. The Balakith Axe Guard weren't even needed in the end. The additional AP being saved for now. In fact, they are going to retreat because immediately they're going to find themselves the target. And again, this is not what you want to be doing. The Ballista's trying to kill the Balakith Axe Guard now. You really want to be trying to go down this line because a ballista projectile will travel right through it and it will devastate the Umbar line. And that's what you need because this attack is not going anywhere fast. While over here, still not eager to go through the Valley of Death here in the middle, the attackers. The Gondor archers still firing away at point-blank range, actually. It's risky business, potentially. But they are trying to slowly wear down this front line. But from the front, the Uruk-hai infantry with their shields and armour will be able to absorb a good deal of pressure. And the Barrow-wights, of course, just through sheer hit points, are going to be able to absorb a decent amount of their ammunition. Here comes the ballista bolts now, actually shooting through the lines as well. Maybe not right down the lines, but at least they're targeting the centre of the Umbar phalanx now. Here we can see some hobbitry and arms that have returned. I think that was the returning Gondor infantry as well. But I'm not sure whether or not they're going to be able to really make any sort of ground up, as still the Balagai footmen and pikes continue to hold the line. Very interesting that they sent forward a lot of spearmen first. Gondor spearmen, Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, even the hobbitry and arms are spears, of course. Armour piercing, but still. Alongside the Barrow-wights here, this Umbar phalanx has most certainly done its job so far. Of course, our blackguards are also in the background. If need be, they can always commit the Balakith Axe Guard. 2 units of them ready. So yeah, Umbar, I think, yeah, and you can see here, this is a real problem. The Dwarves need to pay more attention than this, because they are getting kills on the Umbar line, but they're having to go through their own men to do it. And getting shot in the back by a giant ballista bolt is enough to cause a bit of panic in the ranks, especially seeing as the Gondorians are already looking like routing. The hobbits, I can't imagine, are going to want to stick around too much longer in this fight either. Yeah, and there goes another pretty nasty shot, honestly. What is this? I think that was... yeah, Uruk-hai crossbowmen, Balakith marksmen and crossbow corsairs. Look at this, all the Lurtz hunting pack as well, the Isengard Rangers. A big cluster of very high damage skirmishers over here, and I mean, the silver lining here for the attackers is the fact that the defenders are dumping a lot of their resources into crushing this assault quickly. You know, a lot of that ammunition, even a lot of their infantry manpower. I mean, their Barrow-wights are being used to an extent here, committing forward those Balakith Axe Guard, I should say. Yeah, this is the sort of shot they should have been trying to make right down here, especially now that the Axe Guard are in melee, because they're a nice... it's a pretty expensive unit anyway, certainly more expensive than the Balagai units they're fighting alongside, but the additional AP in melee is also going to prove to be a real problem for the Dwarven and Gondorian spears that are currently trying to make something happen on the front line. Meanwhile, this is an interesting little thing here. The Snaga archers have been pounced upon by the hobbitry and arms and slaughtered. So a bit of a game of cat and mouse here between the skirmishers and the hobbits. The defending skirmishers and the hobbits, and it's one that ultimately the attackers have won. But the hobbitry and arms definitely don't want to advance into the jaws of death all on their lonesome. Not because of the Snaga, but because over here we have an Angmar phalanx. And this Angmar phalanx is even nastier than the Umbar one, albeit in a position which is not quite as advantageous from a melee perspective. Over here, finally the melee engagement has gotten underway as well. The skirmishing has ceased. However, it's only a single unit of Romena Abarim which has been committed forward, and once again I would suggest that more needs to be committed. A little bit too much of the wave-based assaults going on for me at the moment, and while the evil factions with their more disposable numbers can get away with that sort of tactic and make it work, less so for the good forces, especially one that's more focused around quality like Numenor. The Romena Abarim are a very, very strong unit of infantry in their own right, certainly stronger than the Uruk-hai infantry, but the Uruk-hai infantry are being backed up by pikes and by Barrow-wights. Having said that, that is a very nice bit of support as well. The Seafarers of Nindamos and all of the archers are still firing now, which could be enough to give the Romena Abarim the support they need to keep pushing through. They definitely need to do more damage to the Uruk-hai pikemen so the Abarim can make it all about close quarters melee. Balagai archers shifting their way forward. I'm not sure there's enough reinforcements close enough. I mean, there's some Gondor spearmen and some hobbitry and arms, but I still feel as though this assault over here... I mean, to be fair, it does look as though more forces were committed forward, and a lot of the Balagai units seem to have died off, but Corsair Blackguards and Balakith Axe Guard were waiting on the other side for them, and now the 4th Legion Shield Guard are shaken and exhausted. The forces of Umbar still holding firm. And to be fair, all three of the attacking factions, as far as evil factions go, have very strong heavy infantry. And Umbar able to withstand this assault so far. Although to be fair, over here, with the support of the archers and the ballista from across the way now, they are starting to make some inroads over on this side, but they don't really have anything that can capitalise on this. All of their forces are a little bit too far away for my liking. And the Balakath Axe Guard, only 35 of them remaining, defeat seems certain, but the dwarves are also looking like they could rout. The additional AP could be enough to sort of push them over the edge. And of course, it's very difficult to rout Umbar, as I said. Difficult to rout the dwarves of Khazad-dûm as well, but they've already taken such a beating from fiery projectiles of varying descriptions. There's Dreezy's Ents. Here though, the Snaga Stalkers moving forward, preventing the Seafarers of Nindamos from throwing their javelins in. A very nice move indeed, because obviously the last thing you want as a defender is to have your very neatly prepared phalanx whittled down by a unit of very nasty javelins like this. The Snaga Stalkers would not beat the Seafarers of Nindamos in melee, but neither do Numenor want to lose any of these javelin men cheaply to a unit of what is completely free infantry. Very lightweight infantry as they may be. Long bottom mob over there. So through the middle it's quite obvious that they're trying to use javelins and pebbles and axe throwers to try and whittle the defenders down. But on the flanks they're pushing with more infantry. Out of ammunition, Gondor archers are now assisting the push of their Numenorian brethren. The Remena Abarim, with that support of the Seafarers of Nindamos, though, have made some inroads back here. They've certainly done some good damage. So my doppelganger did some good work though. Initially it was looking like that infantry would just be left to rot out on the front line against Barrow Wights and Uruk-hai pikemen as well as the infantry. But that javelin support has made all the difference, and now the Abarim should be able to make something happen, especially with the support of some of that Gondorian fodder. Fodder, relatively speaking anyway. Uruk-hai archers are there. There's still some archers up on this natural position as well. Seafarers of Nindamos getting back into position now, and I do think that they're better off trying to shoot over here because the defenders can't really get to the javelins if they're down here, and they will still be able to do some good damage to those Uruk-hai pikemen. Hometry in arms, long bottom mob. What have we got going on over here? It looks like more forces have been committed. I mean, there's some Balakath shield bearers coming over here as well, and I see them. Dreezy sending forward what is left of his Ents to try and shock this force into submission. The shield bearers and the marksmen have now come forward to join themselves to the front line to really try and help hold down the fort. But with the Ents there, it's going to be difficult. Umbar are going to start to take casualties, and their front line is going to start to look a little bit more rickety. The 2nd Legion Axe Guard are moving forward, a very fine unit to bring against Umbar as well, just because obviously that AP is going to be very useful, especially against the higher tier Balakath units. Some Uruk-hai infantry in reserve, however, so there are some Isengard forces which can still be committed forward, and there's actually still some Umbar units that can be committed forward as well. Some footmen. Ooh, that ballista is going for the right target now. They're trying to use their fire arrows. I'm still not convinced that this is the right play because they're just not going to be able to. There's still 5 Ents left. But I just don't think you're going to be able to break Umbar unless they're really on their last legs. I just don't see it happening. And with how outnumbered the dwarves are on this flank, you're more likely to cause them to waver. Battling Brandybucks. Again, another unit of what is essentially cheap AP shock troops. Up against the professional Umbar forces, however, they're definitely going to be relying on the more stout dwarves to try and do something. That was a pretty nice shot, though. Right through the Balakath marksmen. Some Uruk-hai infantry over here. There's more Balakath marksmen being committed to the front line as well. They make pretty good makeshift infantry. The crossbow corsairs might be out of ammo, although they've still got their crossbows out. But they're going to charge in. That looks like a bit of a rout going on there. Yeah, warriors of Khazad-dûm are starting to rout away, so they're starting to run out of manpower on this front line, which is not good because it looked like they were finally making a bit of progress over on this side. But as it turns out, it's looking like that is not going to happen after all. 4th Legion Shield Guard wavering. I mean, to be fair, Umbar have taken a lot of losses as well, and they're starting to take a lot actually from the ballista as well, as they maybe should have done earlier on in the battle. But yeah, there isn't really another wave that can come up and help here. I haven't seen any of the Mirkwood infantry come forward yet, which is a bit of an ace in the hole that the attackers can count on, having those elves in the late game come in with the steel chair, as it were. But interestingly enough, I think the Remena Abarim, did they get pulled off the line, or did they just die? I can't imagine they died that quickly. No, there they are. So yeah, they did get pulled off the line. I think they saw that they were starting to get well, the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders were there, so they were maybe starting to take a few axes to the face, but also it was starting to prove a little bit difficult with how much they pushed the enemy back to hit the pikes with their javelins. So now they're going to go pike to pike, the Uruk-hai pikemen against the guards of Osgiliath. Pikes actually have relatively similar quality overall, but the terrain and the numbers here are favouring the defenders. And I don't think the Axemen of Lasarnak are really what is needed here. When the line starts to break, the Axemen would be more useful. But we shall see. We've got here Uruk-hai archers. Hobbitry in arms. Victory seems certain. Bit of a wet noodle fight here between the Snaga Stalkers and the Hobbitry in arms. But the Hobbitry in arms being spears with AP, overall they're not free either. They're not a completely free unit like the Snaga. But having said that, they're wavering and the Snaga are not. So if this came down to just a pure fight, the Hobbits would win. But the Hobbits' morale may fall apart here. With the support of some archers in melee, certainly the Hobbits will end up losing this fight here in the middle. Losing a unit of Hobbitry in arms is not the worst thing, but, well, yeah, there they go, they rout. It's not the end of the world, but it's still not ideal, because the attackers are not really making too much in the way of progress anywhere. Another shot right through the heart of the Umbar line, but I can't help but feel as though they're getting awfully close to the dwarves as well. And they are. You can see here that Umbar are trying to position their line now to the point where they're trying to make it so the ballista has to go through the dwarves to hit the Umbar front, which is definitely the right way to do things, and also it opens up a nice slot for the Warlords of Umbar to start charging into the dwarves, and that's enough to rout off what's left of the 2nd Legion Axe Guard there. Woodland Realm Patrol will have been sent forward, so again, elves that are out of ammunition, and Umbar once again proving to be just a real powerhouse here on this front line, managing to hold them at bay. A unit of Woodland Realm Patrol certainly won't be enough to turn that around. The Warlords of Umbar charging in here. Not the best charge though, and just walking into melee with the Ents is not really what you want. The Warlords of Umbar are starting to take a lot of shots from across the way, however, from the Hiri Peng. The Boabarim would actually probably be the best unit to go after them with. Definitely a worthwhile use of the armor-piercing arrows that they come equipped with. Snaga archers maybe getting a little bit too far ahead of themselves. They've charged into what is now the territory of the attackers, and they're now surrounded by Balagyr archers and Hobbitry in arms, and also a few Hammers of Gundabad. I say a few, that is technically a full unit which is on its way up here, and unsurprisingly the Snaga immediately break. Still pushing them off a little bit. Still a few dead Ents here in the middle, and the Witch Realm Inquisitors are down here, trying to kill off as many of these skirmishers as they can, but they need to steer clear of the Ents. What are they going to go after now? They're going to go after Hobbitry in arms? Is that going to be enough to break them? No, but the Witch Realm Inquisitors will just be able to motor on through. I think this might be the end of the Witch Realm Inquisitors, though. They've charged right into the Seafarers of Nindamos. They did manage to get their charge off without any sort of javelins coming their way, but there's so many archers over here that even the Witch Realm Inquisitors, you know, a unit of this quality is starting to become shaken, getting a little bit too deep into the enemy formations. At this point, they're just best off trying to kill whatever they can. A few more battling brandy bucks, but yeah, look at this. That is the Boabarim. You can tell from how quickly the Witch Realm Inquisitors were falling under arrow fire there that the armor-piercing arrows did indeed target them. That's exactly what they should be used for, going after high-profile targets like that. And now, without the presence of any attacking infantry over here, I think that has led the Gondorians to think, well, we need to bombard this line with something. We need to try and whittle down their manpower. And the attackers are now trying to make use of their range tools, their artillery, and their archers to do some good damage. The Hobbitry in arms are coming forward now as well, although, again, a single unit of Hobbitry in arms is unlikely to make too much headway against the defenders here. The Castamir's Rangers out of ammunition, and now on the front line. Offer a surprisingly decent amount of melee defense, Rangers, but obviously they're still not ideally designed for an infantry engagement like that. Meanwhile, there are the Trolls of the White Hand. Have they taken any losses? Yeah, they've taken a couple of losses, to be fair, so a bit of a savage engagement happening over here, but still Isengard able to hold the line, and it looks like mainly Balagyr archers which are on the front line here, so much like on the other side, Isengard's phalanx, their infantry and their pikes together, able to do some nice damage to the attackers as they move forward. Those Uruk-hai scimitars being used to good effect. I don't know what these Trolls of the White Hand are doing. I guess they've had enough of life and they just want to jump off the edge, but unfortunately Medieval 2 doesn't allow that. Down here we can see that the Gondor archers have been caught by some of these Uruk-hai infantrymen. It's going to be not so great for them. One thing that the attackers most certainly need to make good use of is all of their skirmishers here, because that's certainly an area where they pack a great deal of punch. Pretty much all the attacking factions that they had have got some form of speciality in their ranged units. Khazad-dûm least of all, but they still have those Iron Watch. All 4 of the other factions have got very nice forces of archers in different ways. There go the Trolls of the White Hand going off now. The Barrow-wights are coming forwards. Isengard continuing the counter-attack actually, and why not? I mean, there are reserves moving forward now, including Mirkwood infantry starting to make its presence felt. The Remena Bawabarim are actually shaken, and I wonder why that is. There must be a fear-causing unit around here somewhere. Or they must be taking javelin fire. Which there may very well be... actually, there's the Isengard Ballista as well, which could also be causing a bit of a problem. Here come the Trolls of Angmar, moving forward to help their Snaga brothers. And yeah, the Bawabarim, if they still have ammunition, they should absolutely not be being used in melee. Armor-piercing archers are a resource you cannot afford to waste. We'll see what they're used for, though. Those Gondor archers are routing. So you can see that I think Isengard are sort of reforming at this point. Regrouping what was left of that attack, which to be fair, Isengard have taken losses over here as well, much like how Umbar have on the other side. But the engagements have been good for them so far, and now sort of trying to kill off a few more unit models from the Longbottom mob. And the Uruk-hai archers there up on the cliffs, still doing a decent job as well. More hobbits just being thrown into the fire. Still the Snaga stand in the way. Defeat is a distinct possibility. What about over here? Still the Warlords of Umbar doing their thing. Hammers of Gundabad, however, are an entirely different proposition for the Umbar front line to have to deal with, because they're a very, very strong AP shock unit. And now that ranged units have started to become less of a factor, with both sides already pouring a lot of the ammunition they had at their disposal into one another, melee power is going to be much more of a factor. But also one thing that I still think that the attackers haven't really done a great job of is protecting themselves from the cavalry. The Warlords of Umbar are starting to take losses just because they keep getting pounded by arrows every time they come forward. But those Woodland Realm Patrol dying as a result of that charge, and more Hammers of Gundabad also falling, so more valuable kills that the defenders are picking up here. Forward come the Hobbitry in arms. The Tukish Hunters getting into position to try and help wear down the front line. The catapults still slamming there into the ruins, but not into any of the units. There's still a lot of decent infantry up here that can be used. There's Uruk-hai infantry, a little bit depleted. Guardians of Khan Dûm taking a few losses as well. There's Bane Guard, more infantry. There's Gundabad Guard, Warlords of Umbar. I mean, there's still a decent amount of resources up here. Ooh, that's a nice hit. So the catapult is starting to take an effect. But again, the problem that I have is there is gaps up there now, but the attackers don't really have the men there to take advantage of it quickly. Still a long way to go in this fight, though. More than half of it is still to come. And you could make the argument here that maybe going through the middle... Well, I mean, the problem with going through the middle is even though there's less infantry over here than there is on the flank now, if you stay there for any length of time, the Isengard Ballista is going to do horrendous damage to you. And that's just not something the attackers can afford to absorb at this point. Still, this Angmar Phalanx is waiting for the time when it has to enter melee, but upgraded Guardians of Khan Dûm and Witcher-Armed Pikemen is not the easiest of forces to deal with. A very minor melee engagement happening in front of them as the battling Brandybucks are wavering. These Snaga have been pretty resolute, honestly. They've only had to fight very depleted units of hobbits, but they've still done their duty. Barrow-wights, this is I mean, honestly, at this point, I think this is probably the best way that the attackers can go into the settlement, because there isn't really a decent position for the defenders to utilise their skirmishers against them. I mean, you can kind of do it, but it's less devastating if you go this way than it is on the other two areas. And also, there's less units over here. I mean, they can always shift across, of course, more pikes or more infantry. Scourge Raiders in particular would be quite nice with the axes they throw first. But it is on the attackers to make some sort of move here, and it does look as though they are going to go once again for the this choke point over here. It is the widest position after all, so there's a little bit more room to manoeuvre. A few javelins just being tossed into the air. What's that? That looked like the Iron Watch, I think, actually. Was it? Where be the Iron Watch? Because that looked like a projectile that went up into the air, landed, and had a pretty wide area of effect. It is. It was. So yeah, they're starting to bombard the infantry, which, as inaccurate as they may currently be, still capable of dishing out a pretty nice amount of damage. You can see there that the whole sort of, there was like at least 5 men that died as a result of just one projectile there. Very nice indeed. The Dwarven Ballista crew now out of ammunition probably, so they're going to be moving forward once again in conjunction with Gondor, but now with a bit of support from Mirk with the Hiri Alpha coming forward. Dreezy's Ents, who still have 5 unit models there. And this, I think, is the attackers' best chance. Now that they're being supported, they're definitely moving up in combined arms fashion here. The Nimlothian Honor Guard, which I actually missed, so Gondor bringing all of their elite infantry units. Armor-piercing spears, yeah, Gondor are really going all in with this. They've brought forward their Fountain Guard, 2 of their Bodyguard tier units. The Dwarves are also coming forward with an awful lot as well. This is, of course, the signal that the defenders will need to just sort of commit everything forwards as well, but a lot of their reinforcing units are honestly getting caught up on these individual Ents, which is not good news for them. As we head in here, the Ents are going to be causing havoc. A lot of these units look like out of ammunition skirmishers as well. Balakith Marksmen, Crossbow Corsairs, not the sort of units you need to hold back an assault which includes elite Dwarven, Gondorian and Elven infantry. Hiri Alth on the front line, rocking their new armour. There's also the Raven Helms of Caer Andros, so a nice human heavy swordsman there. The Ents are now pulling out. Still have all 5 of their number left alive, so ever since they took that charge from the Inquisitors earlier on, they haven't lost a single unit model. And that's because Dreezy has kept them moving. He hasn't let them get into a prolonged melee engagement for too long, so he's definitely preserving their lives as best he can. And they will need them later on. If they've noticed the Witches at this point, the Ents would be the ideal tool to smash through a line and engage them in melee quickly before they can devastate the attackers' lines. There's Half-Orc Baneguard and Guardians of Karndu and Gundabad Guard on the front line, but there is a big quality discrepancy now. This is risky business. I mean, the catapult, if it goes right into the... Ooh, hello. The green fire of the Witches coming in, and there it is. Right into the hammers of Gundabad, doing a ton of damage there. Ooh boy, that's devastating use of the Witches there. And again, when you're facing off against Angmar, you always need to be wary of the Witches, and I think the Ents, they're going to try and move forward now, but it's already too late. The Witches have already done their grisly work. Where are they? I can't see them. I mean, that, to be honest, that's pretty much all their ammunition that they've used there. But the ghastly green fire, the new projectile that they use, foul sorcery indeed, already did a good amount of damage. Even that might not be enough to save this front line, however. It will still have an effect later on in the battle with all of the manpower that they've just lost, especially in units like the Nimlothian Honor Guard, especially the Vanguard of King Elisar. They were pretty much entirely destroyed. And the Wardens of the White Tower, so 2 of the really elite Gondorian infantry units gone, pretty much. But as long as the attackers keep sending reinforcements over here, they could finally have their way into the second layer. We shall see. I mean, we're past the halfway point now, having a look at the percentage of kills. The defenders are ahead by 2%, but as we know, generally speaking, the attackers tend to come good in the late game. Some sort of unit just came out here and got overwhelmed and destroyed. There's some bandits. Dunedain Rangers. Ooh, Dunedain Rangers shooting right into a blob of pikes. Very, very nice indeed. So this also is another good area for the attackers to come in. So I don't really think that the defenders are going to be able to hold on to this outer layer for too much longer. The attackers are finally starting to make their presence felt. They still have that phalanx there. Honestly, if I were Isengard, I would probably get their ballista back, because I think they're already starting to think about falling back. They've already got some units all the way back there. I mean, they could try and hold the outer layers just indefinitely, but I just don't think it's a good idea. Well, over here, the Fountain Guard on the front line, they didn't take as much damage as some of the other Gondorians from that volley from the Witchers. And that's good, because the phalanx, the armor-piercing phalanx that the Fountain Guard offer, will be very, very good against the Guardians of Karndu and the Uruk-hai infantry. Doing a good amount of damage there between the 2 of them. Over here on this side of things we have the Gundabad Guard. Victory seems certain, which I find hard to believe. They're up against... They might only be Hiri Peng, but Elven heavy archers are still good in melee, and especially with the Royal Legion of Armenelos and Hammers of Gundabad there. The Gundabad Guard stand absolutely no chance in a melee fight like that. They're decent as far as spears go, but Royal Legion of Armenelos are truly a scary unit to face in melee. The Iron Watch of Miromir are also going to be doing their thing. You can see there that they, I suppose, like javelins, it's almost like the Demons of the Desert projectiles, only like mortars. It's one of those sorts of units anyway. It's like a unit which is, as a skirmisher, very unique to Khazad-dûm, kind of like the Demons of the Desert or the Witchers or the Black Book Engineers are. That's Khazad-dûm's variant of that. Meanwhile, Numenor starting to really do some good things with their infantry, but still Isengard able to hold the line. And again, this is the beauty of having pikes. They won't necessarily get you kills very quickly, but they will hold the line for a long time, especially a unit of decent pikes like the Uruk-hai pikemen are. Good armour, decent stats overall. They're unsupported though, so this is starting to become more and more the end of the road for them. They've got some Uruk-hai crossbows, I suppose, but that's not the kind of support they were hoping for, I'm sure. Especially not when they're also going to be taking range fire from Dunedain Rangers. At least I think they are. I mean, to be honest, if the Dunedain Rangers keep shuffling themselves around to try and get a good angle, when really I think their support is needed immediately. Over here, the Ents have returned to melee. Dreezy's Ents. Or maybe Ent singular at this point, I'm not sure. Is it just the one? It's kind of hard to tell because it keeps moving around on the can. Where are you? Yep, it's just the one. But this one Ent is still doing a good job of helping the Royal Legion and the Hammers of Gundabad and those Elven archers push their way through. But as if that wasn't enough, Angmar are now going to be committing their Trolls of Angmar in to try and do some damage of their own, which actually should be pretty damn good against the depleted Fountain Guard. The Fountain Guard will give as good as they get in melee because of their AP. But the savage assault here of the Trolls of Angmar should be exactly what they were looking for. Just to do a little bit more damage to the attackers, and of course the attackers, when they start to run out of manpower, they will feel it more keenly than the orcs that are defending, as the Trolls continue to do their thing. What have we got going on in the background there? Routing Balagaya Footman. What have we got going on back here? There's sworn there was a unit back here. Well, there's some Lurts hunting back up on the hill. I mean, credit to the defenders, they're still committing forward strong units to the outer defence. I mean, at this point they've committed forward so much that I think they kind of have to keep defending the outer layer. They don't really have enough left to fall back into the halls themselves and actually win anymore. So the Witchers, they have maybe one or two more volleys left in them. It's a bit risky though, because they could end up killing their own men by throwing in. Ah, I see what they're going after. They're going to try and kill the Mithril Guard. I think they actually killed off more of the Tukish Hunters there, which is probably not what they were looking for. They managed to rout the Tukish Hunters, but only one of the Witches there actually fired a projectile, which means that that was all the ammunition they had left. They managed to rout a unit off, I suppose, with that, and now the Witches are going to join the melee fight. They're nowhere near as powerful as the Nazgûl in melee. But every little helps, and the defenders need to try and hold this line. With the Trolls on the front line and the Hammer Guard, they may yet be able to turn the tide of this fight as well. Which was good, because it was looking for a while there like the Royal Legion of Armenelos would be the difference maker. But as it is, once again, the defenders have managed to turn this fight around. Forward come some Raven Helms of Caer Andros to try and tilt the balance of the power. And Lothian Honor Guard. I mean, let's not forget that the Hobbits still have their own Ents. There's the Iron Watch of Miromir. Sheriffs of the Farthings. What was that? I heard crossbows fire. There's some goblin trackers from Angmar trying to do some damage. What have we got going on here? Nothing really. There's some bandits trying to get into position. But of course they're a unit which throws their javies and then charges in. And I think what Cole is looking for here is just a unit of regular javelins that throw their javelins continuously into this position. Forward come the Iron Watch, getting right up in the face of the enemy. The Black Watch Legion are also a part of this. They're going to try and fire point blank into these units, which should be devastating actually. Let's see what the Iron Watch can do here. They're not going to be allowed to though. Very good awareness that from Shoot Barrel, because it's very easy, much like the Witchers, although maybe less less severe here because the Iron Watch are a little bit easier to see with their silvered armour. But they're a small unit which you can lose track of, and by the time they're firing it's already too late to respond. But Stu Balrog saw them before they were able to get their volley off point blank into his phalanx and sent forward his Guardians of Khandu to deal with the problem. Very nice indeed. Meanwhile, are Numenor making any sort of progress over here? They were, it looks like. The committal of the Pharazim Swordmasters is a real statement of intent, but Isengard responding in kind with what reinforcements they had left, including the Trolls of the White Hand. Some Uruk-hai Reavers coming in here. I mean, you would still... The Pharazim Swordmasters, the problem they have is they're just outnumbered here on the front line. And the Trolls will be able to inflict casualties as well on them, even if they won't necessarily win, which will, of course, tilt the balance of power yet further into Isengard's favour. But fortunately, Numenor do have a few units of heavy infantry they're going to use to support the Swordmasters, and that might be enough for Numenor to start pushing through. How much manpower do the attackers really have left, though? I mean, Mirkwood should still have a decent amount. They have those Wardens of Amon Lang, very nice archers combined with shock units. They've got some seafarers. Certainly Mirkwood are the army which is in best condition, because they waited a little bit longer to commit their infantry forward, which is the right move, because Mirkwood's infantry is a little bit more fragile to ranged fire than the other forces in their team. So they absolutely should have been the last ones committed forward. But we'll see how well that serves them. There's some Hiri out there on the front line, going up against the Witchrealm Hammer Guard with their mighty rusted warhammers. Very, very strong unit indeed. I'm interested to see what those Lurtz hunting pack do. I mean, they're firing now, so they did save their ammunition, which is good to see. Because it means, of course, they're going to have some of those body-piercing arrows, but they're firing them up into the air, which means they won't be as efficient as they could be. Of course, when they're out of ammo as well, they make for a pretty decent infantry unit. And everyone is going to be required to help defend this settlement. You can see here the Warlords of Umbar are trying to get around us. Mirkwood are now starting to find gaps in the defensive position. Although the Lurtz hunting pack is immediately starting to shoot them, the Goblin trackers will pin them in melee, and then the Warlords of Umbar will charge into them. This one unit of Mirkwood spearmen, however, is maybe in a little bit of danger of isolating itself a little bit too much. I mean, they need to, though, because at this point they've committed themselves, and with the Warlords of Umbar here, as long as they can prevent themselves from getting recharged, they should be in a pretty decent position. We will see the result of that charge after this little cutscene, I guess. And Mirkwood, I think they did manage to turn around and answer that charge, which is very good. You know, Elven spears like this, heavy Elven spears, will do tons of damage to cavalry when they do that. And the Warlords of Umbar shaken. But that was a general, and I believe, because of the presence of the Pharazim Swordmasters over here, that was Numenor. So Numenor's general. I mean, we should be able to see the pompous golden git. He should be... I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of dead bodies over here. But yeah, the Pharazim Swordmasters fighting hard on the front line, and Numenor's starting to gain the upper hand in this fight regardless. So the Ramena Abarim are here, the armour-piercing spears, the Nardukadar also on the front line, assisting the Swordmasters. Yeah, and this is where Numenor are going to be very much at home. Just an infantry fight which is about pure muscle. Having said that, I think... I would assume that that was the Gondorian general. It might have been Angmar? No, it can't have been Angmar. Their Blackguard hasn't been committed yet. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it was the, I saw... Was that just an officer? No, the Nazkai are here, so... Once again, the defenders responding in kind, strength for strength. And the Nazkai will be able to go toe-to-toe with the Pharazim Swordmasters. I think the Pharazim Swordmasters should probably still win a fight like that, just because of their ridiculously high stats, but even so. Bit of a fight going on here, though, and the Hobbits actually managing to get in, and the Isengard Ballista not able to fire quickly enough before the Hobbits worm their way behind the enemy lines, and a big part of that naturally is going to be the Ents, who are already causing havoc behind the defensive lines, and now the bandits and the Ents together forcing the Isengard Ballista off their crew. The problem that I can foresee here is, are the Hobbits going to be able to hold on to this front line? I think they are. With the support of those Mithril Guard, yes they are. So the centre all of a sudden looking like a good position of attack here for the attackers. How the turntables. Meanwhile, over here, it's still looking... Well, I mean, Mirkwood are starting to run some infantry behind the lines, doing a decent amount of damage. I mean, at this point, the attackers are starting to break through, but it's all a question of whether they have enough left over after this very punishing assault to actually make this stick. I don't know. Maybe. Most of what they have left, after all, is Mirkwood infantry, which is most certainly not the easiest thing to deal with in the late game if you're the defenders in this situation. And they still have a few units of elites from the other factions as well. What happened to the Bjornings? You'd think I'd notice a bunch of crazy dudes riding bears. Ah, there they are. And they're also with the Proudfoot Protectors. So yeah, I mean, the attackers still have, in spite of their very difficult assault thus far. There goes the Dwarven General, though, at the hands of the Witch-Realm Pikemen. In spite of their difficulties thus far, they still find themselves in a pretty good position going into the late game, because they have the tools, certainly, to win this. Dreezy's done a very good job at preserving the lives of his men, and the other factions still have the support tools for him to go on to lead his team to victory. But we'll see. The defenders still have some tricks up their sleeves as well. The Witch-Realm Blackguard are, I think, about to kill off these farmers. We also have the Warlords of Umbar, who are going to try and offer what support they can. There's only 4 of them left, but 4 knights, well, 3 now. One of them falling away. 3 knights are still enough to do a decent amount of damage. You can see here the Uruk-hai crossbowmen starting to retreat by the looks of things. I'm not sure where. Looks like Numenor's assault is finally going to grind to a halt. The Nazkai are actually being pulled off the line because they don't want to be shot by javelins. With the Seafarers of Nindamos right there, honestly, Numenor should go on to win this, but still these Isengard pikes standing in the way of Numenor's advance, and Numenor are on the cusp here of finally winning this fight, but it has been a long, punishing climb against the Isengard position here. And again, one thing that you can do on this side of things is put an artillery piece there and shoot into this hilltop over here to make life very difficult for the defenders, but here it's proven to be much more difficult. You can see here as well that the Angmar defence at this point is looking a little bit thin on the ground. There's still some Mithril Guard. They may have lost the general, but they're still fighting hard, and the Witch-Realm Blackguard are in danger of being overwhelmed here. My question at this point is, do the defenders have enough left? We know that they retreated the Ballista crew, but that's certainly not going to be enough to help finish off Mirkwood's infantry in the late game here, as the Hiriek and Hiri Peng, with the support of the Hobbits, finishing off the Hammer Guard. So finally, they managed to force their way through here. It's been an absolute slaughterhouse over here, and early on the defenders did very well. Their phalanx was very nicely constructed, making life very difficult for the attackers, but finally, as often happens in 5v3s, the attack is able to wear the defenders down to the point where they do manage to gain access. But at this point it's time to retreat. There's no choice at this point in the matter. They have been overrun. If you're going to defend the outer layer, you need to defend every point, otherwise you're just going to get attacked in the rear, especially with the Bjornings, because they're obviously going to be devastating on the rear charge, and they are going to lose their Witch-Realm Blackguard, and this will include the Angmar General. It's all just a matter of can they kill enough before they fall that it makes the difference. We shall see. The Ents are still back here somewhere as well, I think. No, it's just one Royal Legion of Armenelos. And he is about to be mobbed by Uruk-hai Berserkers. So Berserkers are a good thing to have in the back pocket, as are the Nazkai. There's also Uruk-hai Archers, so it looks like mainly Isengard. As we go through the White Realm of Nothingness there. Yeah, there's Guards of Orthanc, there's Naaru Sentinels, Lurtz Hunting Pack. Way back here there's some Harbingers, very nice unit to have, as well as some Royal Guards. So they do have some good infantry here. My worry is they don't really have high damage skirmishers, which would make it a terrible... I suppose they have the crossbows, but do they still have ammunition because they've got their blades out? This unit does. Only 44 of them, but yeah, I mean, crossbows and archers, they have the range tools to put some pressure on the attackers, and they have the infantry to hold them. But here you can see the Bjornings. The Berserkers need to get back into the settlement quickly because the Bjornings are taking the opportunity here to try and kill them off where they can. There's Samwise riding a bear. Here come the Bjornings. I mean, they're not going to make a huge... Well, that's a very weird attack animation they've got. But yeah, they're not going to make a huge amount of progress, I don't think. forward coming seafarers and Indamos, because if they do go into the settlement and they charge in, they're going to get hacked apart by pikes. So I don't know though. I mean, Mirkwood have got a lot of units left, which is a good sign. They've got a lot of good support. They should still have the Ents somewhere, unless the Ents spontaneously died. No, there they are. There's only 2 of them though, so they did take a ton of losses. I mean, that's significant. I was going to say, if the attackers still have like full strength Ents, then I worry for the defenders, because they're not going to be able to defend their crossbows or their archers. As it is though, it's going to be close going into the final phase of this battle, as the Angmar general puts on his brave last stand. Witcher and Blackguard overwhelmed by Meteor Guard and Elven infantry. What is this? Some Longbottom mob. Longbottom mob are good over a long period of time, but what they really need is some damaging skirmishes here, the attackers. I think they still have a unit of Seafarers that has some ammo left. Seafarers don't have the most ammunition even when they're at full strength, so that'll only get them so far. The Banderbrass archers still have some ammo. The catapult probably still has ammo, as do the sheriffs of the Farthings. So they've got options here, the attackers. And the Boaverin. The problem that the attackers may have is, while they do still have a lot of nice skirmishes that they can use against the defenders here, they need to come in here, and traditionally this area in Thranduil's halls turns into a killing field, and it's very difficult for attackers to set their skirmishes up. And absolutely what the defenders need to do, for me, is position themselves as close to the gate as possible to make sure the attackers cannot use their skirmishes, because if they can, it's going to be all over. But more or less, I mean, we're not into the final 10,000 frames yet, but this is going to be the final phase of the fight. So having a look at the percentage of kills, the defenders have fallen behind. They are 8% behind. But I would say that they do have units of individual quality, which, if put into a pure melee fight, I would still probably give it to the attackers, because a lot of their units are Elven. We'll see if the crossbows and the Narun Aru Royal Guard are able to make something happen here. And the Bjornings are still kind of getting stuck on these two Nazkai. I think Isengard would probably like these two Nazkai to die so that they don't mess up the pathfinding of the unit that's actually inside the settlement. But the Bjornings seem to be making a bit of a meal of actually killing them. Almost as much of a meal as they're making of actually crossing the bridge. This guy is floating. Well, I think it's time to 6-speed this. I mean, I would definitely back the attackers in this sort of situation, mainly because a lot of the units they have left, from a pure melee perspective, are Elven, and they have good enough support that I think it's going to be difficult for the defenders to win this. They're not going to be able to shoot into the settlement, however. They're going to have to enter first of all. What are they fighting? There's a Hammer of Gundabad there. Must be them. A couple of those Wardens of Amon-Lank did die off. Yeah, and I mean, it's clear that the attackers want to use their skirmishes, but you need to enter the settlement to do that. And as soon as you do that, that's when the defenders can put most pressure on you. It's going to be difficult though. 8% is a big differential to make up, and as often happens in a siege, when the defence started to collapse, the percentages started to go heavily in favour of the attackers, which I kind of believe that earlier on in the fight, oh no, you shouldn't back up from the gate, that's the last thing you should be doing. I kind of think that they should have retreated sooner so they had more to defend with in this outer layer. In this inner layer rather. Defending the outer layer is admirable, but I don't think it's paid off here for the defenders in any way. Here come the Hiriak with the Wardens of Amon-Lank. The Uruk-hai crossbowmen are there. The Wardens of Amon-Lank are going to try and shoot. The Uruk-hai crossbow is getting a volley off. The Narun Aru Royal Guard also shooting into this blob immediately. So now we'll see what some of these elite units are made of. The Guards of Orthanc will be able to hold out for a decent amount of time, but I just don't think that they're going to have enough. There's some Uruk-hai archers here as well. We're actually going to be able to shoot into the rear of the Mirkwood forces, which is a pretty safe bet. But I just don't think, I think what they really needed to do was cluster around the gate a little bit more closely. I think they're quite fortunate actually that the attackers are not coming forward in more force. Those Hiriak are getting shot in the back, which is nice, because they have good shields. But even with the armour upgrade, getting shot in the back is not going to be good for them, even from very basic archers. And Elven they may be, but the Harbingers of Castamere will still be able to defeat them. That's where the Umbar General is as well. So a decent start to these engagements here for the defenders. The Hiri Peng charging into this defensive position as well. The Guards of Orthanc and the Uruk-hai crossbows trying to hold on. And there you can see the Lurtz hunting pack are still there. Well, that's interesting. They still have ammunition as well, so that's a ranger unit. Body-piercing arrows. That could be the saving grace they were hoping for. It's still a big ask though, because it's still a lot of units that they have to mulch their way through here. The defenders. It would be very impressive if they were able to pull this off. The Uruk-hai archers doing their best to kill off as many as they can. There are the Iron Watch. What are they shooting at? Over here. Yeah, you can see there, look at that. Very nasty indeed. And already big hole made in that unit. There's a lot of arrows flying back and forth, however. The Harbingers of Castamere are in danger here of being overwhelmed through sheer numbers. There's Hiri Ek and Hiri Lung now firing at them. These units here, I think they kind of need to do something at this point, because they can't just afford to sit here, otherwise they're going to get shot point blank by Boabarim. Yeah. And this is why I would have suggested making the formation much tighter around the gate. You would be in danger of having just being pushed through by mass. But this is the result of not doing that. Like, losing control of the engagement a little bit. And now you can see as well that javelins are starting to do the same thing. This is the danger of having a static line. There's catapult fire coming in as well, yeah. I think this is it. It's I hesitate to call it a mistake, but I do feel as though that the battle has gotten away from them at this point. The most they can hope to do now is just kill off as many as they can before they fall. This is pretty much everything the attackers have, to be fair, though. Look at those javelins, those Seafarers of Nindamos doing a nice amount of damage there. The Uruk-hai Berserkers now charging forward, but a little bit too late. They've already taken some pretty nasty damage. There goes Castamere himself at the hands of the Hiri Lang. Uruk-hai archers doing their best. Fountain Guard, Nimlothian Honor Guard, Pharazim Swordmasters. The Guards of Orthanc are good, but they can't hold back all of these units all by their lonesome. The Lurtz hunting pack have pulled out their blades in melee. They're decent in melee, as I said, but they need more than decent at this point. The Naru and Aruror Guard are going to do their best to try and shoot these units down. The Iron Watch of Miramir being poked and prodded, but the Longbottom Mob and the Wardens of Amon-Lank still doing their bit with their ammunition. And here are the Bjornings. When there's gaps that appear like this, the Bjornings are going to be able to exploit them. And when you've got a unit of cavalry running around behind your backlines in the final defense of a siege, you know that your days are numbered. Boabarim doing their thing, the Wardens of Amon-Lank trying to slither their way out of this engagement. Those axes are very nice, of course. Hiri Alth getting behind enemy lines, engaging the Uruk-hai archers in melee, just making sure that those arrows cannot find their mark anymore. The Bjornings are over here. I thought they were going to go for the Royal Guard then, but it's actually a good thing that they did not. There though, look at those projectiles. Going a little bit wayward, but doing huge amounts of point-blank damage there to the Nazkai. And as if that wasn't enough, the Bjornings are going to come to their rescue as well. More Nazkai falling away. The Elven King's Palace Guard are also in here. My one complaint about the Palace Guard with their armour upgrades is that they don't really... They have exactly the same armour model now as the standard units, which is... I kind of think that they should have something maybe a little bit more special for them. If only so that you can tell that they're like different. As it is, they kind of just like look like one of the Here units, only with a dual-ended glaive. Which can be a little bit misleading, potentially. Especially from a distance, if you don't realise what they are. Wardens of Amon-Lank trading blows with the Naru Na'aru Royal Guard, but that unit is very good in a skirmish fight, but pretty soon it won't be a skirmish fight that they're engaged in. It will be a good old-fashioned melee fight. How is there still over 5,000 frames left in this battle is what I want to know. Is there any like hidden shenanigans going on here? I shouldn't think so. These are all routing units. Yeah, Uruk-hai archers routing for the hills. Doesn't look like it. No, so what is left? There's no way, surely, that the defenders can prevent their fate here. The Lert's hunting pack is broken and fighting to the death. Nadu and Aru Sentinels have got locked morale, so they're still here. There are the Sheriffs of the Farthings pulling out those pointy blades. There goes the Isengard General, so he was in the Guards of Orthanc after all. And the Guards of Orthanc, as most multiple HP spears tend to be, very tough to wear down, but now that they're broken, they will start to die off pretty quickly. The Uruk-hai archers on the verge of routing as well, the Numenorian infantry closing them down in melee. With the support of some elves as well. Naru and Aru Royal Guard. I mean, I suppose the Naru Royal Guard are very good at holding on for a long period of time, but even so, against the Elven King's Palace Guard, you'd expect them to fall away relatively quickly, especially considering they're also taking arrow fire from across the way. And now the Numenorians and the Bjornings are getting involved. Bedlam indeed. There's a little nook back here. Let's see here. Gondor's catapult crew. Well, that's the end of the Uruk-hai archers. Completely destroyed at this point. There's not much of the attackers left, to be fair, and I mean it is within 10%, which for a 5v3, as I said, is a real mark of quality, because it's, you know, 5v3s are difficult to make close because of the amount of men that are involved. What's actually happening here now? I think we're going to ×2 speed this, because this is a little bit strange. Unless there is hidden units abound, you would imagine that these 9 Naru and Aru Royal Guard would fall away relatively quickly. And that would be the end of proceedings. Samwise riding a bear. Yeah, they're celebrating. What is this? What trickery is this? Do they still have units left? Is there units down here? Is that what it is? No, he's routing. He's dead. There is a blue triangle over here. Perhaps leads me to believe that there's like one Snaga that's just sort of hanging out. Well, it's not this guy. He's routing into a tree. Someone's admitted defeat. Yeah, he must be over here somewhere. No, he's routing as well, so I mean... There must be... There's got to be one dude on the field that isn't routed for the defenders. He's just hanging out. I can't see... Because, yeah, like, look, the attackers are, like, spreading out. I mean, they probably can see where he is more than me, because when you've got it on low graphics settings, stuff like the grass and the trees don't tend to get in the way too much, and you can notice things a little bit more easily. This Sheriff of the Farthing going to head out and try and kill the enemy off. Quite so. Yeah, it's not that crossbow now. Am I just blind? Did he return? I'm very confused. No, it's not him, because he's routing. We're just going up to ×6 speed. It's always weird when someone refuses to admit defeat at this point in the game, because it's obviously like he might even be like stuck in the wall, because I can see there is a blue triangle over here, which leads me to believe there's a guy around here somewhere that's not routed off, and maybe he's like hidden or something. But like, come on, guy. Still, a good battle nonetheless. Very close, very hotly contested between both sides, and early on the defenders did very well. But ultimately I just think knowing when to retreat, I think, is probably the takeaway from this. Because the defenders did a very good job early on of holding the outer layer, but there's only so long that 3 armies can hold 3 separate choke points against 5 attacking armies. And I do feel as though while early on the attackers were struggling a little bit, especially when it came to attacking Umbar and their own forces routing and sort of having a more detrimental impact on their own morale than the enemy morale, ultimately their plan was still sound. They saved Mirkwood for the late game, because if you commit Mirkwood earlier, their lower armor values will mean that they're a little bit more susceptible to grindy warfare like we saw earlier on. They also saved quite a lot of the Hobbit skirmishers for later on as well, for the same reason. Again, they're going to be pretty poor in an atrocious fight like that. And that's why Gondor, Khazad-dûm and Numenor were the ones who were sent forward first, because of course better armour, much more hardy. And I do think that my doppelganger here, You Mad Cool Mander, does deserve a lot of credit for how he's set up. Like he did use his javelins in particular very well, and I do think with how important the seafarers are to Numenor's army compositions pretty much universally, if you can use them well, you're always setting yourself up well to do well in the battle. And he did that. Dreezy may not have got the most kills, but I do feel as though, you know, the way that he saved his army for later was absolutely the right thing to do, because when you're facing down a reasonably healthy Elven stack in the later game, you know, it's always going to be difficult for you as the defenders. Gondor and Khazad-dûm had to take a lot of damage on the chin, but that's all part of it. Like, if you have to go in first, you have to just sort of accept the fact that you're going to die a lot, not necessarily get the most kills, but you're performing a valuable service to your team. And the Hobbits getting a lot of kills with their skirmishers. The defenders didn't do an awful lot wrong. I just feel as though when it was clear that their lines were starting to falter, they maybe should have pulled back to Thranduil's halls and tried to defend the gate there. Try and turn it into a single choke point fight with their elites and with stuff like their witches in particular would have been particularly devastating, rather than how they did it here. But still, good spread of kills across all of them. Umbar getting the most, unsurprisingly, because of how much pressure they had to deal with in the early game. Isengard also doing quite well. Angmar getting the fewest because they were defending the middle, and that was only engaged upon later on. Let's see what did the damage for Isengard, though. The MVP in terms of kills is looking like the Lurtz hunting pack, and nope, it's the Uruk-hai archers. So unit of basic archers getting the most kills, very, very nice. It shows that they were going after the right kind of targets, lightly armoured, and also not being shot back in return. Crossbows not doing brilliantly. Like, you can do a lot better with crossbows in a siege like this, I think, but then they're always going to be a target for the enemy to try and kill off anyway. Mixed fortunes for the Uruk-hai infantry. I feel as though the one that got 179 was the one that was initially on the front line against Numenor, holding them back for a long time. The pikes as well did very well. I mean, Numenor did well in their own right, but Isengard also did a good job at holding them back for a long time with their pikes and their infantry. The Isengard ballista got 0 kills, which is another area in which they really should have pulled the ballista back a long time prior. That would have been a fantastic tool to have in the late game, especially with how clumped up the engagements can get in behind the gate. And as previously said, the Lurtz hunting pack did well, as did the Nazkai, as did the Trolls. So more or less what you'd expect, but the Isengard ballista is definitely the one where you'd expect it to do a little bit better, and maybe the crossbows, particularly the one that only got 55, you would hope to do a little bit more as well. But big thank you to Lango for sending this one in. It was a very enjoyable experience. It's been quite a while since I've done Thranduil's halls, in spite of the many times that I've done it in the past. It's good to see that a few more trees have been added to make it seem a little bit more like Mirkwood than it was before. But yeah, Mirkwood able to reclaim their home, albeit at great cost. I think that the next battle I will be doing is a battle that I was in on a new Belfalas cityscape map, which was very fun. A nice 4v4 good versus evil thing like this as well. And yeah, I might be doing a return to my top 10s / top 5s relatively soon, although I'm not sure. I'm just sort of making some sort of preliminary ideas of what I could do with regards to that. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.